Good morning. Thank you for listening to WXOX 97.1 in Louisville, Kentucky. Or perhaps you're listening to our sister station, WXND, at 100.9 on the dial, or perhaps you're listening online or on the app. There's no reason why you aren't listening to us. This is Artist Talk with LVA, the show produced by Louisville Visual Art, and I'm the host, Keith Waits, and we talk to artists. So this week and next week, I'm focusing on people that we have invited to be featured artists in our annual Art Squared online fundraising event. So it's really a big deal. It's very successful. And everybody does these 8x8-inch canvases or pieces, but we pick a handful of people to do something a little bigger and give them a little bit more of a spotlight. So today I'm here to talk to Simone Brown. She's a Louisville native who got her Bachelor of Fine Arts from Eastern Kentucky University a few years ago. She has exhibited around the state. She's living in Louisville now, and she's one of the featured artists, and she's primarily a painter. Simone, how you doing?
I can't complain, Keith. How about yourself, man?
Well, we can all complain, but if you choose not to, if we choose not to complain, or at least be strategic with our choice of complaints, that's the best thing. But there's nothing to complain about talking to you. So you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit. You came and showed me your work. You wanted to sort of have me look at your work and talk about it. You did a couple pieces on our free wall, which is the place where artists who haven't maybe done murals want to get in there and sort of get their feet wet painting on brick walls, because it's not the easiest thing in the whole world to do. But you're a featured artist for us today. Now, this year, I want you to talk about this piece. It's kind of to me, it's kind of an unusual piece, certainly in this event and in this exhibit. Tell us about your piece. Tell us a little bit about how you made it, and then what it is that you're speaking about in the piece.
All right. Well, the piece is basically, it's 5 layered plexiglass. I guess you call them slates, like they're panels of plexiglass.
Yeah.
And on each layer of plexiglass, I just painted. I chose the image, and I kind of put together a composition, and I just on each layer painted the message that I was trying to convey, and then using acrylic, and then I just put it together. So, using bolts and screws. Yeah, that's pretty much.
But what is the image? What are you talking about?
Okay. So in my on the plexiglass, it's actually a person in like a pool with in the fetal position, and there's a bunch of beautiful orange flowers around him. And basically what I was trying to signify in that was just that cocoon process that we all have to go through, and that growing stage. Because for me right now, it's really been, since the pandemic and a little bit before, it's been, a really interesting journey that I've been on. One, like I said, I can't complain about, but, just experiencing, everything that life is giving me, whether it be good, negative, and growing in myself as a woman and an artist. So.
Right. Cool. Now, is doing these plexiglass panels, is that kind of, how long have you been working with that? Is that something new you're exploring, or have you done a lot of that kind of work?
Oh, it was completely new. So that's why I was so excited when you were like, yeah, just do what you want. I was like, oh, really? Plexiglass instantly came to my head, because there's a large, I'm actually putting together some pieces right now. I'm working on, a good amount of new pieces. I have about 5 that I've got done so far. But I really wanted to explore kind of playing with depth, but in 2D form, and how you can make things look, more realistic, and just how you can take a flat image and make it appear 3D. So that is, the point of layering it and adding so many different layers of the plexiglass.
So is the experience doing this piece get you excited to do more with that approach?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it may be my ADHD, but anything where I can, switch constantly is like, ooh, to me, because it's just the exploration of it all. So, it's like, trying something new for the first time, like painting for the first time, or like drawing for the first time, or, even heck, I remember the first time I threw some, clay on the potter's wheel and how that was for the first time. So it had that level of excitement to it, most definitely.
Cool. So are you primarily a painter? Is that correct? That's been your medium of choice?
Yes. Painting is my main focus.
Who do you have people that you count as influences? That's like a common question for artists, but sometimes I feel like it can seem like an arbitrary thing for just to pick out some names because things are cool. Like what made you want to be an artist? Were you looking at art and thinking I want to do that? When you were younger?
I can say that, well, there were three main influences to me. My grandfather, which I didn't know at first, he was a painter. So before he passed away, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it didn't just randomly pop out of the, out of the gene pool somewhere that I like to paint. My grandfather was a painter. But when I was younger, I used to watch my big brothers draw all the time. And of course, they never let me draw with them. They just would make me kind of stand off to the side. And so it was just watching them in amazement at what they did, and, having certain artists that you just looked up to. When I was a kid, my favorite artist was Bob Ross. Seeing him make those happy trees, and I remember my dad would take me, and we'd go to like the dollar store, and he'd get me that little tray of Crayola paints, and he'd get me like a big pack of notebook paper and just let me paint. And that's really where my love for art began.
Well, so then when you went, you mentioned Bob Ross, and it was interesting because, I mean, I remember when Bob Ross was alive and doing those things, the sort of academic art community, people that go to school or were teaching, tended to look down their nose at Bob Ross. But because he was never having a personal expression, right? He was teaching a certain sort of technique that seemed to be counter to what you might be learning when you go to art school or go to and get a BFA.
Yeah.
Did at some point, did you ever feel like you pulled away from Bob Ross into something else, or do you feel a certain affection for Bob Ross? Because now he's kind of an icon.
Oh, yeah. He's like Andy Warhol, Bob has gotten to that level of, I have a t-shirt with him on it until, I found out some other stuff about his family and the royalties. I'm like, oh God, we never even knew that. But it's really interesting that you say pulled away from Bob. I wouldn't say that I've pulled away from him, but because the interesting thing about it is, like, what I've experienced, at least as an artist, is you go to school, you learn the fundamentals, they give you all of this stuff. You learn from, all of the European greats, whether it be, let's see, Leonardo da Vinci, and, all the main people you think of, right? Mm-hmm. And then once you get out, you're like, okay, I have to develop my own style. So it's like you kind of, for me, I had to unlearn a lot of what I was taught in the academic realm, because it was almost like it kind of enclosed you to where it wasn't very much room to grow when you kind of looked at it from, that academic standpoint, because I was in a place where it was like I was trying to make everything super realistic. I was trying, basically to copy it like a photo, instead of allowing my creativity to show through and, just let the paint speak for me. I was trying to make it look like this famous artist that I saw, or this person that inspired me, or some cool person that I saw on Instagram, instead of just, allowing the paint to do what it did when I put it on the canvas.
Well, in all this time that I've spent talking to artists, it does seem like part of the value of school is that you do get into, I don't want to use the word restrictive, but you work within a very specific framework, learning certain kinds of things, and then you do get out from it. And I also, I was just talking to Ava Persh the other day, and she paints Not photorealistically, but they're representational,
Okay.
certainly. And she feels like she's moving more towards painting abstractly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a sort of a misnomer that people who don't know anything about it think that people who paint abstractly or expressionistically can't paint representationally or realistically. And what I find is that almost every single abstract artist started out doing representational work, and maybe they were even quite good at it. And it's almost like working in from all that detail. You start to you somehow reach a core of what abstraction is about, because even the most realistic thing, you know this from all your classes, has that abstract core, has those fundamental sort of ideas about composition and structure and relationships and stuff like that.
I completely agree with you. When you said that, you know, artists go back, I mean, think about Pablo Picasso. I mean, if you look at his early work and how realistic that looked to his African art inspired stuff that he was doing when he passed, it's completely different, you know, and it almost looks like something that a child could do. But I feel like once you've kind of mastered realism, what's left for you to do but kind of regress? And like I said, I feel like when you take the idea away from focusing on like, okay, let me make this look exactly like it looks in the picture, or let me make this super representational, that's a whole nother art form in itself. Because for me, if I do anything art abstract, I'm trying to constantly add something representational in there, and it just takes away from it. So I feel like, you know, once you get to a certain point with realism, you know, abstract is the way to go, just to challenge yourself a little bit more.
It also occurs to me, and I don't know if I've ever had anybody answer the question, but that if you are working, if you do abstract, then that might actually even, like, you could go back to working, let's say representationally, not necessarily realistically, but with maybe a greater understanding of composition dynamics, for example. Like you broke it down to a different level, and you could actually go back and then have one experience inform the other, or maybe you don't agree with that. Tell me you disagree with me. That's okay.
I can see where you're coming from, and I guess that I've never thought about it from that perspective, because I'm not really a abstract painter. For the most part, everything that I do is representational, but I feel like I said, once you kind of take the idea of making something look like an object that you're, you know, using for reference, it kind of opens up that, you know, that avenue to focus more on the composition of it all. So your depth, your, you know, your color, your, just the balance of it, outside of thinking of, okay, let me make this look as real as possible. So I agree with you. I think I'll agree with you on that, Keith. I'll give you that.
Well, you don't have to agree with me. You could just say that allow that it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And that, well, every artist's journey is, you know, individual. But, you know, your work is representational, but it also is not so realistic. I feel like do you feel like there's an expressionist strain in what you do? Because that's what I kind of see. That some of it's much more representational, naturalistic, but there's also always a way that you're working with color and the way you make your marks or brushstrokes that makes me think of an expressionist strain.
And I'll tell you what, at first I did not like that. I worked so hard to get rid of that. In school, I can remember I had a teacher, because I would try to blend my stuff and make it look super smooth. And she was like, that's just the way that you paint. I'm like, I hate it. So now I've learned to more so accept it. And I think that's what, you know, I meant when I was saying I had to regress from trying to make things look like I saw in the photo or like I saw in real life. Yeah.
Right. Well, when you're being, if you're not being realistic and you're being expressionistic, or maybe even transforming a photograph, you know, whatever you're seeing that in nature to something like that, then it's like in some ways you're finding something there that isn't necessarily apparent to everybody else. Like if you're documenting it,
Okay.
That's a kind of thing. Like if you're being realistic, you're documenting it to a certain extent, although it's always you, it's always subjective in that way. But if you could look at something and paint it expressionistically, getting tongue tied on that word, it's something you're seeing that might be, it's like seeing an aura or something. It's like you're seeing something about that thing, that image, that location or whatever in real life that maybe only you're seeing or you're feeling.
That's true. And I think that that's ultimately what an artist is. You know, anyone can be taught to look at something and repeat what they see. But I feel like the ability to take what's in your mind or take an idea or, you know, any concept that you just come up with and translate that onto the canvas or whatever surface you may be using, whether it be the wall, a type of apparel. I feel like that's where the skill lies, because so many people can think things, but actually to pull that all together and make a cohesive piece. Yeah, that's where the artistry lays.
So how do you feel Louisville is as a town to live in as an artist? You're from here, but I guess I'm making a little bit of a separation. Like since you got out of school and have lived here,
okay,
how has it been to come into Louisville as an artist?
For me, because that's the only perspective I can speak from. I feel like it's really what you make it to be. You know, you might have people who say, Louisville doesn't have a real art scene. And then you could have people who say, you know, Louisville has a good art scene. I feel like the art scene is very close knit, and so much in a way to where that's still something that I'm getting into and exploring. So being in Louisville as an artist, that's a tricky question, Keith. It's not, because it's so much that, you know, I have to take into context. You know, I have to think about the fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I'm Black, you know what I'm saying? A lot of things that may come into play, or, you know, even my upbringing. There's so many things that kind of compile to make it what it is for each individual. But I don't feel like Louisville's a bad place at all to be. I feel like it's where it's good for me, at least where I am at this point in my career and my artistic journey, and still learning and growing. But it's really what you make it. I mean, there's so many things to draw inspiration from, especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything that's been going on here and nationally. You know, as an artist, there's so much that you could just pull from and speak about. So I feel like I have good hopes for Louisville as far as becoming, you know, a bigger creative hub and bringing more people in.
Right. Okay. Well, great. Well, I'm glad you feel that way. And I wasn't trying to prompt you to be negative. It's just, you know, everybody has different experiences, and there are a lot of visual artists in town. But I think the most common refrain is people wish there were more places to show, more galleries, more opportunities.
Now, there's that too. But Keith, really, I feel like it boils down to who you are as a person. You know, as far as being persistent, because the thing that I've learned about being an artist that no one taught you in undergrad was that you can be the best painter in the world, but if you don't have a level of work ethic and go get it about yourself, a hustle, none of that matters. So I feel like if you can hustle and really, you know, put yourself out there, and you aren't afraid to meet people, you aren't afraid to say, hey, this is what I do, then, you know, it's a good starting place as an artist. And that's why I said, for me and where I am in my career, Louisville, it's not horrible. Now, you know, can you compare it to a place where, you know, art is just huge? Maybe not. I don't know. You know, that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. But I feel like if if we have all the artists come together and, you know, just open art up and show it to people maybe who aren't artists or who aren't already within the community, because like I said, it is so close knit. Like if we open it up and expand it, I feel that there would be more, you know, more opportunities to show, more galleries being built. So I feel like Louisville's on its way to that, but it's a slow and steady process.
All right, cool. Fair enough. Well, that's about all the time I've got for you right now, Simone Renee Brown.
Okay.
But I think you and I will be doing this again. We will be coming together. You know, you'll have an important exhibit, or you'll get a commission. Something will happen. We'll have more to talk about in your career, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
but thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I can't complain, Keith. Thank you for having me, man.
All right.